بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. I'm going to do a quick recap of the chapter of Zakat, just in case you weren't here before or certain things aren't clear to you. So let's start by so we talked about the different types of zakah that can be given, right? So what's the first one that we talked about? Yeah, so livestock. Right? Livestock in a number of different, so camels, cattle, sheep, and when we say sheep, we mean also goats. So goats are a part of sheep as well, right? And we went into a lot of detail last time. There's also a minimum amount for these. What's the minimum amount for camels? You have to be more than 5. And for cows, look at the thing. You can look at it. I don't need you guys to tell me by heart. You can look at it. So 30 cows, right, and 40 sheep, right? Now, what are other conditions that that are here? That they have to be. What are the conditions for zakat, generally speaking?
1 year.
Yeah, so a year has to go by. You have to be a Muslim. You have to be free. You have to have full ownership over them. It has to reach a minimum amount, and an additional condition for livestock is it has to be naturally grazed, right? So you're not paying for the food. If you're paying for over 50% of their food, they're not naturally grazing, you don't pay zakah at all. But if they're naturally grazing for 50% or more of the time, then you have to pay zakah, right, within this system. Now 5 is the minimum amount, and then it's complicated. For baqar, it's 30 tabi'a and 40 musinna. Right? And then you just keep on adding as you go along. And then for sheep, it's the same thing, 40, and then after 300 is 303 sheep, 404 sheep, and go on and on. Right. So now what's the second type of zakah that we spend? What was the second type that we studied last time? Was it money? Or did we start with zuru'u thimar? Was it money? Okay. So the second is money. When I say money, I mean gold and silver. I'm not talking about currency. There's a difference between money and currency. Currency is the paper you carry in your hand. It's supposed to be backed up by money, sometimes it's not. Right? So money is what we pay zakah on, not currency. So if we say money, then we have to identify what money is. Money is a form of currency that has ability to hold on to its value for long periods of time. So what are we talking about here? In terms of money, we talk about gold and silver. Now, the issue with gold and silver is that silver isn't actually money, it's a currency. The Muslims use silver as a currency. You had gold, but you didn't want to carry gold around, so you would give it and then take silver coins instead. It's less valuable. If it's stolen, it's not that big a deal, but gold was much more valuable. Now, silver lost its value throughout the years, throughout the centuries. But what held on to its value throughout the centuries is gold. Gold, till this day, still carries its value. And any currency, any fiat currency that is not backed up by gold has a 100% rate of failure. So when we talk about Bitcoin today, there is a lot of fear when we talk about Bitcoin. We don't know what Bitcoin is going to happen to it because it's not backed up by gold. And anything that's not backed up by gold has a very bad history. We have no evidence of it ever working historically. What is the minimum amount of gold that we need? Yes, so 85 grams. So 85 grams is the amount of gold. So what does it add up to today? So today is $4,500 to $6 Canadian dollars. So if you have $4,500 and $6 Canadian dollars in your bank account, then you should start counting. Let's say today is the day that you got on the 25th of January. Or you have to look at the lunar calendar, right? Not the Gregorian calendar. So look at the Gregorian calendar, the lunar calendar, it's the 8th of Jumad al-Ula. So you look at your bank account, you suddenly have now, it's nisab. It's called nisab, you have the minimum amount. You have $4,500. Now, you look at your bank account again 1 year from today. What happens during that year? No one cares. You can tell me you lost all your money, made $1 billion, then lost the $1 billion, then was debt into $1 million, then we don't care. A year later, if you have nisab still, you have over 4,500, you have to pay zakat. What is the amount that you pay? These are important numbers that you need to know. You need to 1 out of 40, or 2.5%. You have to pay 2.5% every year. And that day of the year, let's say you don't have nisab anymore. You don't think of zakah at all. And then the day comes where you have nisab again. That's the day you start counting. A year later, you look at your bank account again.
Let's say gold change the value.
Yeah, so you look at so then you look at your bank account. If you have 4,500, but 85 grams of gold is 5,000, you don't have nisab anymore. It doesn't matter. You don't pay.
Awesome. Change.
You change with it. What we care about, do you have enough currency to buy 85 grams of gold? I do. Okay, then you have nisab count from today. A year later, you still have enough money to buy 85 grams of gold in your bank account? Yes, I do. You have to pay nisab. I don't. Then you don't pay anything at all.
If I had the amount for 11 months, and at 12 months, the gold was 5,000. Change in the last month.
I don't care about anything in between the date that you looked at your bank account and you have nisab, and the date you're going to look at it again a year later. So if the day is the 8th of Jumad al-Ula, right, that's the day. This is the day that marks the day I have enough money to buy 85 grams of gold. I have enough currency that's the day that marks. Okay, now I don't care about, and neither do you, about your bank account until the same date a year later. Until a year later, the same date. What happens in the middle, even if a day before, doesn't matter. You look on the 8th of Jumad al-Ula. Do you still have enough money currency to buy 85 grams of gold? Oh, I have much more. Okay, then you pay 2.5% of that as zakah lil fuqara. We'll talk about who's going to get it once we're done the basics. That's how you do it. Don't enter any forms of difficulty. This is talking about currency. We're not talking about trade goods yet. Okay, we'll come to that in a second. All right. The second or the third type of zakah is in agriculture. What are the types of agriculture that we pay zakah for? What's the word that you have to remember all the time? Staple food crops, right? That's the name that you have to remember, staple food crops. So it's not everything that comes from the ground, only staple food crops, only the crops that are essential for human life, that we need, everyone needs, everyone uses. What are they? Wheat, qamh, barley, sha'ir, dhura, corn, lentils, adas, rice, right? Ruz. These are the 5 that all madhahib agree to. There are others that the madhahib differ on, but exist. I'm not going to get into them, but there are other things. But this is the basic. What do you pay? What's the nisab? What's the minimum amount? First of all, what's the minimum amount that we gave? Look. So 650, right? More than 650. I'm repeating them so that inshallah it helps you remember them, because these are numbers, if you know the basic numbers, it helps you out a bit. More than 650 kilograms without the shell. So it's not just putting the whole thing, you have to subtract the weight of the shell. How much do we pay? So it's either nisf al-ushur or al-ushur, right? So what is that? So al-ushur is 10%, or is going to be, al-ushur is 10%, or 5%. 5% if it is being irrigated by your own wealth, you're paying to irrigate it, and if it's not, it's just from the sky, then you pay 10%. So it's either 10% or 5%, depending on how it's going to be irrigated or taken care of. I'm going to offer a piece of information here, just for those who are interested. It's not important. I take the opinion of what is narrated from Ata ibn Abi Rabah and Ibn al-Arabi al-Maliki, al-Mufassir, the man who wrote Aridat al-Ahwazi ala Sunan al-Tirmidhi, rahimahullah, and what Ibn al-Humam put in Fath al-Qadir. These are 3 scholars who talked about when you do agriculture, do you take away how much money you spent to actually prepare the earth? Because what the Sunnah talks about is irrigation. Did you pay for irrigation or not? No, okay, then 10%. Right. So what happens if it costs me to rent the piece of land? I have to rent the piece of land, so I have to pay rent. To buy the seeds, so I have to pay for the seeds. And then I had to put manpower to actually take care of the as it goes. I had to use certain medications or pesticides or meds for the soil. I ended up spending all for this around 45K. I spent $45,000 to get all that done. And then I made 100K. So do I pay zakah on 100K? Or do I subtract 45K first and then do it? So the Jumhur, this is very clear here, meaning the staggering majority says no, you just pay on the 100K, you don't subtract anything. But I take the opinion of certain scholars like Ata ibn Abi Rabah al-Tabi'i and Ibn al-Humam rahimahullah and Ibn al-Arabi. And what they talked about, Ibn al-Arabi al-Maliki, not the Sufi guy, Ibn al-Arabi al-Maliki al-Faqih. So these people said no, it makes more sense and it's more in alignment with the Sharia, with the spirit of the Sharia, that you subtract what you had to pay, and then on what's left, if it's nisab, then you pay zakah on what's left. So basically here, you would end up paying zakah for 55K if that adds up to what is 650 kilograms worth of food, and it probably is, and then you pay zakah half al-ushr or 5%, and usually if you're paying all this money, then you're probably going to pay for irrigation as well. But if you're not, then you do 10%. So you paid for all this, but not irrigation, you do 10%. But the idea is that you subtract. And there is an opinion that carries that, and I think in my understanding, that's a valid opinion, and I think it's strong, especially for people who, the way they live is what they do. They rent pieces of land and they grow it, agriculture, they grow wheat and barley and corn and lentils and rice. If they're not doing these things, there's no zakah at all. So if it's khiyar bandora, if it's tomatoes and cucumbers, then they don't pay zakah at all because there's really nothing there. But if it's something different, then yeah, that would be the way to do it. Specifically because we're losing so much, I think this is important because we're losing so much agriculture today. People are shying away from growing natural and organic food, and it's important that we keep farmers in their business to keep on doing what they want to do. If you're going to weigh them down with zakah rules that are sometimes not fair to them, they're losing money. Because what happened if you lost? What happened if you paid 50,000 and then you came up with 650 kilos of, you had like a ton of wheat, but it was only worth 20,000. So you actually lost money here. You pay zakah even though you entered and you're completely losing. The Jumhur say yes, but these three say no, you don't pay zakah for that, especially if you're losing, if you're not making anything. And I think that's more in alignment with the spirit of the deen.
But didn't we say that people don't typically lose their value?
They don't typically, but what if they did? So we're talking in the situation where it happened. That's why staple foods are different, because they don't typically lose their value, and usually if you are working like that, you don't end up losing money. But let's say that they did, and that's where this would enter, this understanding would enter. Okay, so what's after that? Fruits. All right, so fruits.
But what's the difference between 5% and 20%? When is 5?
10, sorry, 10, it's not 20, it's 10. So 10 if you don't irrigate the land, you don't use water for it yourself, you pay, 5 if you pay for the water, you have to pay for the water. And we talked about paying for other stuff, that there's opinion that supports it. Shafiee, of course, don't do that at all, but I'm just telling you. Okay, so fruits, what are the two fruits that there's zakah on? Yep, so dates and grapes. Same number, same concept, same thing. Nothing changes here. Exactly the same stuff. So agriculture and fruits are very similar in terms of how they work. Okay, now today we're going to talk about trade goods, and we talked about all that. So we're up to وتقوم. So in the matn where we are, وتقوم عروض التجارة عند آخر الحول بما اشتريت به ويخرج من ذلك ربع العشر. And then at the end of each year, you estimate or you calculate the value of trade goods that you have. And I'll talk about that in a second. At the end of each year, meaning when the year goes by, yeah? based on what it was bought with. So you bought it with gold or silver, then you're going to calculate its value based on gold and silver, and then you're going to give away 2.5% just like you did for money. So when we talk about trade goods, it's exactly what we talk about for money because we're just putting up the value, but there's differences because now we're going to talk about actual assets that you use and what that means and how that works. وما استخرج من معادن الذهب والفضة يخرج منه ربع العشر في الحال. And if you are someone in the business of taking out gold and silver from the ground, that's your job, like you dig for gold and silver, then you immediately give 2.5% the moment you extract gold and silver from the ground. You don't wait for a year. So if you're someone in the business of extracting, none of us here do that, but if you are, then you have to give away 2.5% the moment you find gold or silver. وما يوجد من الركاز ففيه الخمس. And whatever you find in terms of treasure, then you give away 20% of it. So if you're working in the ground in your land and a pot of gold is found, this is treasure from the Jahiliyyah days or a long time ago, then 20% is going to be given for zakat and 80% is yours. Okay, now let's talk, of course the next part is going to be zakat al-fitr, but now let's talk about trade goods.
Sorry, but that
yes.
treasure after a year you still have to pay it. It's
then
2.5.
After that, it depends. Are you going to hold on to it? Are you going to spend it? So if you hold on to it for a year, then yes, it turns into money, normal money. But the moment you find it, you give away 20%. Now, trade goods. Trade goods is going to be exactly like money. There's really not much of a difference between trade goods and money, but we're going to break it down so that we see what differences exist. So what are examples of trade goods? I'll give you some examples that matter. So first of all, piece of land. That's an asset. Cars, for example. All right, so piece of land, cars. What else? Livestock. Remember, livestock. Livestock can also be considered trade goods if you're not using. What is the condition of it being livestock here? Has to be ready for what? Is it be using for what?
Milking.
Milking. Milk.
Production. Slaughter.
Reproduction and slaughter. If it's used as a working animal, what do we do if it's a working animal? No zakah on a working animal, right? And if it's used as trades, you're going to use it to buy and sell, then it's no longer, it moves over there. It becomes a part of trade goods. Another example, houses. And then stocks.
Would slaves be under that, like back in the day?
Back in the day, if that's why you, if that's why you have them, if you're buying them to sell them, then yes. So these are examples of trade goods. Land, cars, examples. Of course, there's many other assets you can have. I'm just giving you examples so you can think with me.
Oil.
Oil? What do you mean by oil?
Petrol.
Stocks and oil.
So oil. Petrol, you hold on to petrol for a year?
Like, in Arab countries where...
Yeah, but they don't hold on to it for a year. All these things have conditions. The condition of money. The money has the same condition of all the other. See, agriculture and fruits, there's no year condition. Right here, there's no year condition.
Oil is translated into money.
Yeah, so oil is money or trade goods, but it has to be sitting around for a year for you to actually pay zakah upon it.
So if you sell it and then you get money out of it, that money
has to sit down for a year. If it's there for you pay zakah. So it's transferred now from trade goods to money.
But oil is underground.
Yeah, but it's not gold and silver. Gold and silver is what you pay immediately when you get 20% or 55%. Oil doesn't qualify. So gold and silver, if you find it, if you're looking at gold and silver and it comes out, then yes, you have to pay 20% immediately, or you have to pay Ruba al-Ushr 2.5% if you're in the business of digging for gold and silver. If you find treasure, then you pay 20%. Oil doesn't qualify for that. So oil, zakah we calculate zakah based on how much money we make off oil, and then that money stays for a year. Then you pay on that. So you don't pay on oil itself. If it comes out, you give away 20%. No, that doesn't qualify. We're talking about if you have land, and that land you are renting it. So people work in it, and then you make money off the rent. Do you pay for zakah for that type of land? No. Anything that you rent out that people work on, that you make money off, you don't pay zakah on. You pay zakah on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 basic ideas if you are preparing them to sell them, meaning you're using them as tijara, using them as trade goods, meaning the intention of trade has to exist in them for you to start paying zakah once a year. So for you to pay zakah once every year, you have to have the intention of trading. But if I have a piece of land and I'm working in that land, and I'm using that land, and I have trees in that land, I pay for the agriculture of the fruit that exists in it. I don't pay for the actual land I own. Even if I owned a lot of land, as long as that land I'm not using it for trade. So people will buy a piece of land, buy a car, and then put that car, and the intention that they have is they're going to turn it into a classical car, or then turn it into something later on to sell. If they want to sell it that year, and they have it sitting around, then it turns into something they have to pay zakah upon. But if I'm buying this car, I don't want to sell it. I have no intention of selling it for another 10 years. I don't have it on the market, I'm going to put it away. You don't pay zakah on that because you don't have the intention of selling it now. It's not a trade good right now.
If you have subdivision and plaza, let's say,
yeah,
and they rent, I'll pay for the money, zakah, the money.
No, if you're renting, if this plaza you own it, you're renting it, you don't pay zakah on that. You only pay zakah on the money you get from the rent if it sits for a year. So I took money from the rent. I took from this guy 50,000, now I have $1 million every month. Now if that money sits for a year, I pay zakah on it. But I don't pay immediately on the rent that I get from the land or from the plaza that I have. The same thing goes for houses. The same thing goes for stocks. Stocks are a bit more complicated, meaning calculation of stocks is more difficult. What are the stocks? What does it mean to have a stock? Do you own a piece of the company? Now what does that company have? Does that company have manpower? Is it an agricultural company? Is it a company that builds things, or you own you own buildings or land? What do you own in the stocks? So if you're going to talk about stocks, you have to be a bit more detailed in terms of. That's why when we talk about investments, you can't invest in a company you don't understand, because now you own stock. This stock is potential something to pay zakah on. You have to understand what you own. I have 20 stocks in a certain company. What does that mean? What do I actually own in this company? So that I can do a calculation of zakah. So these are the stocks are more complicated in terms of us being able to calculate zakah, but you still have to calculate zakah if you own stocks and the stock value is again more than 85 grams of gold. Right? We're talking for these things if they have to reach nisab as well. If you own something and you want to sell it and buy it, but it doesn't reach nisab, it's not 85 grams, it's not 4,500. Like I bought a couple of jackets, they're $1,000 altogether, and I want to sell them. That's not 85 grams of gold. It's not worth it. So I don't pay zakah even if they sit around for a whole year. They have to reach the nisab as well. The same thing goes for livestock. If I have only 4 camels, I want to sell them. I only have 4 camels. I don't pay zakah on 4 camels because I own camels, but their value is less than $4,500 or less than 85 grams. I have maybe a couple of camels, but they don't add up to that, or sheep. If they don't add up to $4,500 or 85 grams, I don't pay zakah. If they do, then I pay zakah 2.5% of their value every year. I don't treat them as livestock anymore. I don't say 5 and 30 and 40 anymore. I treat them as if I'm treating money. I just say, what is their value? I calculate their value is this. Okay, is it nisab or not? Is it 85 grams or more or yet less? If it's more, then it's nisab. I have to pay 2.5% every single year as I go along. And this.
If you have stocks for a year, but you didn't sell them, do you pay zakah on it?
So why did you buy those stocks?
Let's say I'm waiting for 3 years, because I know it's going to go up.
How do you know?
Because I know the company history and I did my studies and stuff like that.
Yeah, so you think, or you hope, or you anticipate that is going to go up. So your point here is you want to sell it at a certain time. Yeah. So there's different ways of scholars talking about if you buy something with the intention of holding on to it for a while until its value goes up and then selling it. So there's different opinions among scholars regarding that specific situation. One of the opinions is that you pay zakah once you sell it. Only once you sell it. And I'm good with that if we're talking about non-essential products, or products that aren't harming the economy by you holding them back, or they're in production. Like stocks are things that are happening. It's a company, it's part of a company, you own a part of a company. You want to sell it, but it's working. So I'm okay with that. But if you're buying pieces of land, and those pieces of land no one's touching them, they're just sitting there. You're not allowed, you're not renting it out, no one's using it. You just want to wait because you know that at one point this is going to become more expensive. No, I don't think that's acceptable anymore, and most scholars don't either. And this is, again, I'm not talking about the Shafiee anymore, because this is something I feel like everyone wants to know about.
Not acceptable meaning that you don't have to pay zakat?
No, you can't pay zakat just once. You have to pay every year.
When you're holding it?
If you're holding it with nothing but the intention of selling it and it's dead land, it's not being used anymore. Meaning you're not using it, you're not doing anything with it. Let's say that you bought that land, you had the intention that 10 years from now, I'm going to think of selling it, but now I don't want to sell it. The question now, are you working in that land? Or is someone working in the land? Is someone making money off of it? Are you renting it? Are you nothing? You're just holding on to it? Then you have to pay zakah. Because the point of one of the points of this is that you don't turn sila, you don't turn actual commodities or assets into dead money. You take it because you're taking it out of the economy right now. You're taking it out of the economy. You're harming the whole world economy with the intention of you just really profiting years later. So, and there's different opinions, of course. You can still find someone who'll tell you that's fine. Just pay it once when you sell. But I'm telling you what I think in terms of what's okay and what's not okay. If you're holding onto an asset that is being used, but you have the intention of selling it a long time from now, then you pay zakah once when you sell it. But if you're holding onto that asset and it's a dead asset right now, nothing's happening with it, you're not moving it around, it's not being rented, it's not being utilized in any way, then you have to pay every single year, especially in large amounts, because some people will buy like hundreds of hectares of land, like thousands of hectares of land, just hold on, and it turns into dead land. No one touches it, no one you can't build anything on it, you can't rent it, you can't do anything with it. They're just waiting for it to become more expensive.
You don't have cash to pay. If you don't have cash to pay then.
Well, here's the thing, we'll start selling the land. Start putting the land for sale. This is the idea, is that it forces you to start moving the money around. Sell or rent, do something. Don't just hold on to assets and then kill them. That's the thing. If you're moving the asset around, khalas, if you have a piece of land and you're renting it, you don't pay zakah at all. Understand that? You don't have to pay zakah at all. If I have a piece of land, I rented it to you to work on, I don't pay zakah. I just have to help you pay the agriculture zakah. Meaning if you end up using one of the 5 staple crops, and if you don't use that, then there's no zakah at all. But if I'm holding on to a piece of land, I'm not letting anyone work, I'm not renting, I'm not doing anything with it. I'm just waiting for it to become more expensive 10, 15 years down the road. I don't know when. Like I don't know, I'm just waiting for something to change. Then you have to pay zakah every year, because this becomes more opportunistic behavior.
As soon as you sell it, you pay zakah, or you have to wait a year for the money to sell? Like let's say
No, you sell it the moment you make it, if you're holding on to it for a long period of time. Example for houses, if you own a house and you're renting it, you don't pay zakah for that at all. You don't pay it because it's renting, you're not, but if you bought a house and your idea was, I'm going to sell this house, I'm going to make money off it. That's my intention, I'm going to make money off the house, then yes, if a year goes by, you have to pay zakah on that house. Or wait until you sell the house and then pay zakah for the number of years that before. And because the idea here is that you want to sell, but you're being picky, of course, because you don't want to sell with anything. You want to make a profit. You're trying to make a profit. You're not trying to survive. Look, the key word here in Arabic is tijara. You are trying to get into trade. You want to become a businessman, you're selling and buying stuff. If you have assets that the intention behind them is to sell and buy things, then you have to pay zakah on a yearly basis on what you have. But if you're not, you're using it, you're working it. If you have cars, let's say you have 10 taxis, and you have people working on those taxis, and it makes you money for you, don't pay zakah on that at all. You only pay zakah on the money that you make from this if it sits for a year. You don't pay zakah on the taxis. Unless your intention was, I bought this taxi company so I can sell it and make a profit off of it. That was my intention. I want to sell and make a profit. Then if every year it sits around, you have to pay zakah on it. So let's say I bought a house and I want to live in that house. I lived in that house for a long time, and then I want to sell it. Okay, the moment you have the intention of selling it, you mark a year. You start marking a year. And the question is, why you want to sell it? Because you have no money, or because you want to buy another house? I want to buy another house, then you don't pay zakah at all. But if you want to sell it because it's a trade good, meaning you have other houses and you want to make money off this house, then you have to pay for it. Does that make sense? So the intention for trade goods becomes a big deal. And that's why in an Islamic financial system, there would have to be, and this used to happen, there would have to be predetermined or previously explained intentions of assets that you own. I mean, you have this asset, what do you have it under? Do you have it under a used good, a working good, or a trade good? You put it under a trade good, we start marking zakah for you. Let's say you say, no, I have it under a used good. Okay, if you have it under a used good, you can't sell it until you flip it over to a trade good, and then you have to wait for a certain period of time, which makes it harder for you to lie. Return. I don't want. But of course, you can find loopholes if you want. Like if you have the intention of finding a loophole, just like if you want to find a loophole in taxes, you can do the same thing. When it comes to money, me determining why you have money, how much money you have, what you're doing with it is very difficult. It's not something easy. The government would have to put a lot of effort to know actually what's happening. But this is what it comes. It comes to intention of trade. Tijara, you're buying it because you want to sell it. But let's say I have a house. I have 2 houses. I'm renting one house. I think that's what you asked me once before. Just so that's clear to you. I'm renting this house out, and then I decide I want to sell that house to buy another one to rent it out. Right? I don't like this house anymore. You don't pay zakah on that at all. There's no zakah here because your goal here wasn't to make money off this house. Your goal was you want to buy something different so they can do the same business that you're continuously doing. But if I have 10 houses and my intention here is to sell these houses, that's what I'm trying to do. I want to sell these houses at a certain point to make money off them. Then yes, the more I have these houses, I have to pay zakah upon because these are trade goods now. So let's say it takes me 5 years to sell one of these houses. I have it on the market. That means I have to pay 5 years worth of zakah on it when I sell it, which is a lot of money, which encourages you to sell the house quicker, which makes sure that people don't hold on to assets for too long. That makes sense with nothing happening. But if you're like, well, during the 5 years, I was renting it out, then you're good. Then you're good, you don't do anything. Because you have to, if you're renting it to someone, then at that point you can't just sell it to someone else because you have renters inside. You have a contract that you have to honor. So you're honoring a contract. That means you have to have a certain. You have to do some certain calculation beforehand to remove the rent, those who are renting, and then start putting it on the market for someone to buy. Is that making sense to you? So if you own these assets and you're using them, whether it's for rent or for anything else, then you don't have to. This is not something you pay zakah on. You only pay zakah on the revenue that you make off this. So you're going to make off all these things here. You're going to make a revenue. It's going to turn into money. Well, that's money. You go back to money. Is it nisab? Is it there for a year? Then you pay zakah. But because actual things you do, no, you don't pay zakah on. So does that make sense? So I know that sometimes it's explained differently, and you're given the impression that you have to pay zakah on everything you buy, and everything you sell you have to pay zakah. No, that's not true. You don't have to pay zakah on everything you buy or everything you end up selling. The question is, what are you doing? Are you in the business? Are you in business? Are you trading? Like, is your intention every time you buy something that you want to sell it later on? That's the goal. That's how you're going to make money off it. If your intention of making money off something is selling it, then you have to treat it as a trade good. You have to pay zakah upon it. If you own livestock and you're putting all the livestock, and your goal is at the end, I'm going to sell it to a butchering company, then you pay zakah if it's around for a year. If it's around for a year, then you pay zakah on it. That's how it's done. But if I own the livestock and it's for grazing, milk reproduction, then I don't. Zakah is done differently. It's done on a whole different system altogether. I own cars, and those cars are working. There you go. I buy cars and I sell cars. So if it sits around for a year, I have to pay zakah upon it, or I have to start selling it. Yes?
How about taxes? They reduce it from the zakat?
No, we don't reduce taxes from the zakah, because taxes is actually us paying the government to allow us to have access to certain services. These services otherwise wouldn't exist. So we don't take that away from zakah. Zakah, these services aren't a part of zakah. Like in zakah, when we talk about the people who are going to pay zakah to, we don't talk about, well, healthcare and free schools and buses. That's not a part of zakah. So you can't take that away from zakah. You are trying to keep this country that you're living in running services that you're happy with. So you pay certain money. Now, I'm not saying that I like taxes or I think the way they do it is right, but I'm also not saying that it's wrong and we're going to deduct it from the money before we pay zakah. No, you pay on what you've got, and then zakah, taxes is a whole different, which is called kharaj or darayib in Arabic, which is something different from what zakah is. Actually, you're paying based on trade. So when we talk about trade goods, that's what's important for you to understand. There's a lot of details. There's a lot of difference of opinion among scholars, depending on what you. I'm trying to go not too detailed and not too superficial, so you understand what we're talking about. Whenever you buy something with the intention of selling it, that's how you're going to make the money off it. Then you have to pay on a yearly basis zakah. But if you buy it and you want to use it, consume it, or turn it into a business, then you don't pay zakah on it. You only pay zakah on the money that you make off it if a year goes by. Does that make sense? Do you have any examples?
If you sold it later, I bought a house and I rented and I wanted to sell it.
So the moment you have the intention of putting it on the market, you mark that day. That's a year later, if it's not sold and you have the intention of selling, you're trying to make money off it by selling it, then you have to pay zakat. Now, another thing that they talked about, I'll offer this as a final thought. If I'm renting a house, but I'm ready to sell it anytime it comes, and I have it on the market, the moment I can, I'm going to sell it. Then yes, you have to pay zakah on the house, and this is what usually happens. This is what usually people come and ask me. So I have a house, I'm renting it, but I want to sell it. The moment I can make money off it, I'm going to sell. I don't want, like, I'm not interested in the rent money that I'm getting off the business. I don't want it. I want to sell it, but I'm just not. No one's putting it, giving me the price that I'm happy with. So I have it on the market for sale, but I'm renting it out. Do I pay zakah every year on it? Then yes, you pay zakah every year on it.
If I bought a house and I rented, but for the intention of for my son, but I want to sell and to buy a bigger house.
So if you're selling a house so that you can buy another one, you don't pay zakah. If you're selling a house because you want to buy another house, this is not trade anymore. This is not me buying a house, fixing it up, waiting, and then selling it to make a profit. It's me. I want a house. I don't like this house. I want another one now, and I have more money. So I sell it. And this is not. There's no zakah here because the intention here wasn't trade. It's not just the intention of selling. It's the intention of trade. And it's saying the difference between, they're not the same thing. Sometimes I don't have money. I have zero money in my pocket right now. I need to sell something to make money. I'm not selling it because of trade. I'm selling it because I have no money. I don't pay zakah on that. It's when I'm putting this asset into the stock, into the market of the business market. Meaning I want to sell and buy and make money off selling and buying. So anything that sits around for a year, I pay zakah upon, and that's it. But if not, that's not my intention. I don't have money, or let's say you have money, but you don't want to waste that money. So you want to buy a piece of land, just to hold on to your money. That way, I have an asset. Because if I'm the type of person, if I have cash, I'm gonna throw that cash away. I don't want to lose my cash, my currency. So I bought an asset. I don't want to sell it. I just want to wait to hold on. You don't pay zakah for that either. المال الذي المدخر لحفظ العرض الذي المدخر لحفظ المال لا زكاة عليه. If an asset exists, and your point.
But this is contradicting to the first point that you raised. If you have an asset sitting for a long time, and not.
So the question is, do you want to sell it or not? So the person who bought it.
That part of the world, this is the only way you can keep your money. So he's for that. The moment the intention is, I want to make up it. Yes, you make. Yeah, so just the many have to pick up what you pay. So intention is very clear here. I think a big role in terms of the he paid the intention of you how old. Only it's different and already pay different are different. See, they have good. Think you have the shilling in process is going to turn around here is not the different money brand. It's using like have cars big it's I pay a revenue that I make if it's unfair. Such so this is why you want that because I think come bottling that the most like to pay for the years so the money or you is the most you're going to put them first you for many years the attention is different come to I as the buying bought and money like to live is on but that's why so piece of land, right? So I would, if you were cooking the would you give for a piece of land that you want to have of opinions on this issue. I think that all comes down to whether what you're doing is determining content or helping it. What you're doing is not you that you bought because you want to use your city. Did you let your relative buy or come and hold it you have tried from saying of the calories, besides this one is more employees than so you try to give 21 if it's money that you're like on $100 down to 21. If you're 100, then to okay. You're supposed to money that would he for a year. So this is the minimum quite life and a year. Wouldn't any than $15,000 because giving the money would within her and life. $15,000 can pay something for and make. If you are more than that, so he gives will be in for a lot. I'm going to give a lot of enough here. It was not going to happen. Like about that happen. We can about it. But it's happened in time. We won't. It will come. We want sufficient. Here is in terms of people who are impurity. People, if you can't make enough money to eat, so you eat 10, you only have for you. If I give what do you do this? Tell your family, you know enough to eat. You children, you serve of look at people that we have to tell them. They not these people can't find to eat. Take everything else and just we don't care about them. Zakat actually is move well immediately. It's immediate have no time. It's time because you take cycles a year into actual whatever they're doing. It's an immediate removal. You have to take from you, give it to the person. So it's a bad thing to come giving that. So and that be used. These are those living in a spirit trust. We don't know what the way what the a curse not war, right? With war, okay. We must trust not for being contested. We don't the point going to be don't have that's on this complete finish. This is finished. Long anyway. Then what this is gone. This is all people part. He's got to pay from them anyway. So what's with me? I think this one and maybe to the when I